Thank you, Barbara. And thank you, the other Barbara, and also Laura and Sheila. It was a privilege to listen to you guys. Alison Koppel, I saw you dancing. I was too chicken to leave my camera on, but I did have a little dance. So, you know, it's midnight here, and that was pretty incredible to see everyone on the screen. So I'm not sure about putting a researcher on the stage next, but I hope I'm not a downer. But yeah, it was just amazing to watch all of that fun. So I do want to start by recognising the traditional owners of the lands on which I speak today. So I'm on Quandamooka country in Meanjin, or Brisbane, in Australia. And I do want to just say it's just great to join so many other people to celebrate women in mining. The energy is just so positive, and that was really fun to watch all you guys. And I really do appreciate the invitation to join in, because as a researcher, mostly I focus on the challenges of gender in mining. So my focus is the struggles, the inequalities, and what needs to be done to close the gender gap. So this means I don't always appreciate the positive things and the positive energy that's happening in this space. So tonight is a real treat for me to really, you know, be in a space that I can enjoy. So just thank you, IWIM, for that. So Barbara, when we spoke, you invited me to talk about my vision for mining, but a little bit like Sheila, I don't really have a big vision to share tonight, but I think IWIM's doing a great job there. But I do have a few ideas about how we might think about gender in mining to keep both the successes and the challenges in frame. So I've got about 10 minutes to speak, and I just wanted to touch on 3 key points. So first, this idea of small wins in the context of very large challenges in this area. Second, the importance of connecting the idea of inclusion to safety. And third, I'd like to acknowledge those women bringing an intersectional perspective to the conversation and to recognise their work. I want to finish just by making a call for stronger collective industry action, but give me a couple of minutes to make those first 3 points, and I'll get to that. So on this first point, small wins and large gaps. In terms of the global data that we have on women in mining, the best estimation that we have is that about 15 to 20% of the global mining workforce is women. So that's in the large scale sector. Now, when I became a researcher about 15 years ago, that was after 10 years at BHP, the figure that was quoted back then was about 13 to 17%. So there has been a gain, and there has been an advancement. And this is the stuff that we really need to celebrate. But we mustn't forget the gap. So the figures mean that roughly 80% of the industry's global workforce is male. And so while we celebrate, I think we must also continue to mention the gap and insist that there's plenty of room for improvement. At the moment, we don't have good data about women's participation in ASM or artisanal and small-scale mining, but most estimates suggest that women's participation in ASM is greater than the large-scale sector. So we might have some things to learn there. And this contrast between the two sectors is another way to remind ourselves about the idea of the small wins and the large gaps. On this second point, so connecting inclusion and safety. So despite the wins, women are a minority. And so like other minority groups, women are left open to discrimination, harassment and abuse, and some unsafe work environments. So alongside inclusion, one thing I think to really improve is protections and avenues for women to report concerns and incidents and have those acted upon. We know that too many women don't feel safe yet reporting concerns and incidents, and so these patterns become normalised. So a multi-pronged approach is needed because the structural barriers to gender equality and respect are numerous, and they're still entrenched, and they manifest differently across the whole industry. An arena where there's a real opportunity to learn is in Indigenous employment and mining. And this is another area where we have seen wins. In Australia, mining is the largest industrial employer of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. And of the total Indigenous mining workforce, about 20% are Indigenous women. And recently, the industry has become more open to this idea of cultural safety. So it's becoming a lot more common to talk about cultural safety and to recognise that behind everyday racism, there's deep structural issues and biases to overcome. So there's a lot of work to do, but I think that we can really learn from this. And on the third point, so making space for intersectional perspectives. This word intersectionality is really central in gender studies. So it's a really important word and an important concept in gender and mining studies. The American law professor, who some of you might have heard of or even know, Professor Kimberly Crenshaw, says that intersectionality is this prism for seeing the ways in which different forms of inequality can kind of operate together and exacerbate each other. Now, Black feminists were among the very first to bring issues of intersectionality to the forefront of debates, largely in response to the white feminist movement and our lack of awareness about racism. So today, intersectional thinking really pushes us to consider where people sit at the intersection of so many things: gender, sexuality, age, race, class, economic status, social position, and so forth, because these intersections really affect people's lived experiences and their life outcomes. And at CSRM, so where I work, we're tracking some really interesting research by First Nations researchers who are studying women in mining. I'd like to give a real shout out to Jodie Cowdery. I don't know whether she's on the call, for instance, but she's at Charles Darwin University. Now, Jodie's examining why there's a disproportionately low number of First Nations women in the Northern Territory's mining industry, and she's documenting the experiences of Indigenous women. So First Nations researchers like Jodie, they're studying gender, race, and other intersectional issues in women in mining, and they're using methods that are really culturally sensitive. So I reckon as we go forward and as IWIM goes forward, it's really important to include these researchers and their research on Centre Stage so we can hear from them and learn from them as their research findings come to the fore. And the question being asked by researchers like Jodie and my team at CSRM extends beyond whether women are good for mining. It really does extend, and we're asking, is mining good for women? So is the industry a safe and positive place for women to work? And is mining a safe and positive proposition for women and girls in near mining communities? Now, for many women, and maybe many women on this call, the answer to the question is yes, but it's not yet the case for all women. So gender and mining research may tend to focus on the challenges, but it does offer many valuable insights into why gender equality exists and why it persists in and around the mining industry. And so just finally, a brief word on collective action. In my view, gender inclusion is a pre-competitive issue, as it is in other areas where there's a high demand for skills such as mine engineering graduates, or a demographic group such as Indigenous employees. So instead of competing in a really small pool, the industry needs to work together to really grow the pool, and we need to see much stronger overall progress. So collective industry action would see stronger industry-wide strategies for the inclusion and retention for women, and you saw that through the survey, Barbara. You know, that's really the area that people want to see progress on. A greater emphasis on safe workplaces, and a collective commitment to supporting and using research that documents the industry's challenges and also their successes. So I think in years to come, that kind of industry-wide change would really be something to celebrate on the International Day for Women in Mining. So thank you, IWIM, for asking me to join in the celebrations, and congratulations on such a positive and inspirational event. Well done. Thank you.